Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Geekly Oddcast.
This week's episode, spoilers.
Ew.
It begins.
I'm Tom Herman, host of the Geekly Oddcast, and also of the Brothers Herman. And tonight on panel we have
Nick Hoffman, editor of Dude Letter, host Myopia Defend Your Childhood, desperately wanting to finish a sandwich, and just grateful to be on this podcast because I was afraid the information would get leaked out, so we invited very few people.
Next on panel we have
Hello, this is Daniel, frequent contributor of Myopia Defend Your Childhood, and Harry Lime was in fact a ghost the whole time and played by Kevin Spacey.
And I am David Herman of the Brothers Herman, aka Ramnessus of the Brothers Herman. I review cartoons online, and so honestly don't run across... I review old cartoons online, so honestly don't run across spoilers that often. But, you know, I hate it when they do happen.
Yeah, so basically what brought this is the topic du jour, the topic of the week, specifically is the Nerdist.com and one of their posts on Facebook. And I'm not going to give away the spoiler because that would be a dick move, but I can basically just say what they did, which is basically they go, Star Wars spoiler, again, in the headline, cap spoiler, but the rest of the headline, which isn't very much, contains part of, if not the whole spoiler. And as somebody that can read an entire headline at a glance, as most normal people can, the phrase spoiler isn't going to stop my eyes from catching the rest of what's there. And to me, I don't think that's an adequate spoiler warning.
Well, I sort of have this image of what they must have been expecting, which is that those who didn't want to be spoiled would see the word spoiler and recoil like Dracula seeing the sunrise.
You know, it makes me wish that, like, some more things were kind of like a better version of Reddit, where you could tag something as a spoiler and then just be able to just say no spoilers. Because, hey, it's one of those things, like, who could care most of the time? But, like, and I know this is where we're probably going, so I've talked to Thomas a little bit about this already, so I know I'm not going too far off track. But if it's a movie I'm going to see already, I don't even like watching trailers, and it's not that I'm paranoid constantly. Like, if I heard something about the new Star Wars, I'm going to see the movie anyway. It doesn't really matter to me. But ultimately, even trailers nowadays tend to give too much away. So the question always becomes, A, what is a spoiler? And then B, what kind of information are we trying to hide ourselves from? If it's all clickbait anyway, it's weird, right?
Well, yeah, and at the same time, I saw another article that followed the Nerdist article, which basically said nobody really knows what the plot is except for the producer, the director, like, you know, the head-up writers and directors at Disney, and I guess it's still Lucas Studios, but, you know, he's not in charge. And, well, he knows now, too. He just saw it. But all of the actors have not seen the final cut footage. Like, but the fact of the matter is somehow Nerdist got something, and it's probably a minute detail that doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is that, you know...
Well, it's also so unreliable these days. I remember, you remember when Interstellar came out last year?
Yes.
I think there was some article that had said they had the final shooting script and was describing it scene by scene about, like, Matthew McConaughey's character finding some Chinese space station with a killer robot, and this space station was, like, in the direct center of the universe that had all of this access to parallel universe. It turned out to be nothing like the final version. So, I mean, even if they tag it as a spoiler, it's usually just clickbait. I mean, you can't guarantee that it's real.
But just think of how much ad space they would have sold if they had taken that wild shot in the dark and been right.
Well, I mean, or even better, if whoever it was that Nolan who did Interstellar?
Yeah. Yes.
If he had actually filmed, like, that scene, or, like, a weird kind of semi-scene and just released it online. Because, like, they used to do that kind of shit, too, where they would release things to Entertainment Tonight and, like, give out fake things.
Or trailers used to have scenes that never made it to the movie, and you're like, well, where was that scene?
Oh, well.
Far better than the trailers that gave the entire plot to the movie away. The entire one, including the twist that happens 3/4 of the way through, they team up.
Like Nick Cage holding up the dollar bill in National Treasure saying, the dollar bill's trying to tell us something. And you're just like, wait, that didn't end up in the already bizarre.
I guess, just from the perspective, it does come down to, to choice. So as Nick said, he doesn't, really go see trailers for a movie he knows he's going to see. I tend to troll IMDb for trailers just to watch them as much as I can. But at the same time, I watched the teaser trailers for Star Wars, but I kept myself from watching the extended ones because I didn't want anything given away either.
I've seen the extended ones. I still have no idea what that movie is going to be about.
Well, that's good to hear as well. But no, I can't immediately think of a trailer that does, but there are trailers that you're just kind of like, well, I know what happens in that movie.
Well, I think the biggest problem with spoilers these days isn't even trailers. It's as people are moving away from having cable subscriptions, but cable shows like Walking Dead and Game of Thrones are still phenomenally popular. I mean, people are just going on and immediately talking about it, which is spoiling the impact for a lot of other people. Like in my case, I've had The Walking Dead spoiled for me multiple times. I've had Game of Thrones. I managed to avoid knowing about what happened in the Red Wedding, but all I've been hearing about this year is that something happened to Jon Snow, and there were like petitions about it. It's like, wait, something did?
Something happened in Game of Thrones? No, surely you jest, good sir. So
yeah, I recently had, and it's not fair for me to hold it against them, but the final 3 episodes of this season of Doctor Who, I've been holding off on. Because there are people I'm going to watch them with, and to be fair, some of it I already knew because I already knew, like you can get news of which actor or actress is going to be on a different show. There's nothing you can do about that, but they sort of a bunch of people sort of accidentally spoiled some stuff for me, assuming I knew it already the other day because. What are you going to do? The same people who'd just been complaining about having had Walking Dead spoiled for them. They didn't even realize.
Well, so I'm gonna shoot 2 things out there. The first is, and this is worth discussing because you talk about spoiling the impact, and there was a study out of the researchers at the University of California at San Diego. Though how this study came to be, I am not sure. How you would actually quantify this is an entirely different question, but it'd be unique. Which basically goes, spoilers don't actually diminish one's enjoyment of a story. Rather, they can actually enhance your overall experience. Still, many of us, myself included, are resistant to the notion of having our favorite series spoiled for us against our will. When is it okay to spoil stuff? Why do we do it? Is it really that bad? Is there a middle ground to be had? And it's just kind of like he goes through and says it really doesn't. And I'm kind of like, well, that depends, because Nick and I discussed The Sixth Sense. And
I was going to bring that one on myself.
Yeah, and it's a great one to kind of go, the reason it works, and this will be a spoiler, but I'm pretty sure I can state the statute of limitations is passed.
16 years?
Yeah, is that, if I can even be vague, is that if you know the twist, it helps to watch it twice, because you get the twist, and then you get to watch it again and see all the hints for the twist. And it gives you the double experience. If you know the twist before you go in, which, to be fair, I did, there's no need to watch it that second time. Like, it kind of ruins part of the experience. Psycho would be another great example. I mean,
and unfortunately, Psycho's been ruined. I mean, in that sense, for a lot of people now, because it's so old. Everyone's like, well, of course we can just talk about it.
Well, my wife isn't here. I'm not gonna, and she won't listen. But her parents apparently used to be flipping the channels or whatever, and they would just be on TBS and see the last scene of Soylent Green or whatever, and so she knows movies effectively only by the spoilers. And it's I guess almost a part of cultural shorthand to the point where by the time we actually watch the movie, the idea that if you're this age, living in, I'm not even talking about, I'm 30. I'm not even talking about being 30. I'm just talking about living in 2015 and I say Soylent Green is people, like that's not a surprise. The movie is 40 years old at this point.
Yeah.
At this point, Soylent Green is essentially shorthand for we're packaging up people for eating.
Yeah, I mean it's more so than even Hannibal the Cannibal. Like everyone knew that the show Hannibal was about Hannibal Lecter, and that's not even the spoiler of the movie. There really isn't even a spoiler in the movie because it's a manhunt movie.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, you say Hannibal on TV, the teaser poster, the trailer, is just him dabbing his mouth, right? Like with a napkin, and you're like, oh, he ate someone. Fantastic. It's just such cultural shorthand at this point.
Yeah.
Even though it's Mads Mikkelsen now, not Anthony Hopkins. Or it was.
Well, I think to a certain degree, we're talking about twists now, and I think it's worthless if a film can only depend on its twist to have an impact on the audience, which is the whole thing with The Sixth Sense. I mean, when you watch it a second time and know it's coming, you can pick out how that would actually make no sense. I mean, for example, who hired Bruce Willis to evaluate the kid that sees dead people? How was he able to really interact with all those objects and not have somebody notice what was going on? You know, like chairs or doors opening by themselves, or chairs moving or doors opening. But something like Psycho, there's an actual buildup and a craft to it, and you can still see, even if you know what's coming, why it would be shocking to people who don't know. It's still very effective. I mean, the way that the shower scene is shot to obscure the woman's face, the scene with the car where Norman is trying to get rid of it, and even the end scene when they finally reveal, you know, the big twist about who Norman Bates really is. It's still effective, even if you know what's coming, and that's the whole thing. You can still watch something with a twist, and even if it's spoiled for you, you can still admire the craft. If the film's got nothing but its twist to fall back on, wasn't really that good to begin with, was it?
To be fair, you are comparing M. Night Shyamalan to Alfred Hitchcock.
Well, he did that plenty himself back in the day.
That's true.
I'm just in this case pointing out, M. Night Shyamalan, you're not as good as Hitchcock.
No.
Yeah. Well, and so then I guess, you know, obviously there's, as you know, I made the joke of earlier, there's the statute of limitations on spoilers. I think Penny Arcade had one of the best jokes about that, about King Kong.
Well, and he'll post the comic when...
And I'll post the comic when this comes out. But but basically the discussion becomes more of...
Sorry, I just realized the irony of us recording something and talking about things like Walking Dead or Doctor Who or Game of Thrones, but we're actually not going to get to this episode for probably weeks.
Yeah.
So whatever spoilers we're alluding to will be way past any statute of limitation.
Well, yeah, and so in general, I find my rule of thumb for anything significant is 1 year out, especially with television shows.
Well, for television shows, I've seen a multitude of rules. I actually found a website. I will link to that as well. It's actually from last year. It was on.
So you're not giving anything away?
No, it's about when is it acceptable to discuss spoilers? They go for a weekly TV show, 24 hours. Like, so after a day has passed after the show, you've given people enough time to, if they couldn't have watched it the night of, to watch their recording. Then
Why
start
is that,
having the
though?
discussions.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, that's what I was sort of talking about earlier. I mean, not everybody has cable these days because cable companies are evil, and that's just, we're moving away from that. We're moving away from having to see it now and more into a subscription-based service where it's on demand. So why is that 24 hours still valid?
I do love that, Daniel. I'm sorry. But, like, the idea that they're evil and not just that it's too expensive, it's like, if only I could pay as much for a non-evil alternative.
Fiber's on its way.
Hey, I know.
Hey, there you go.
They've announced that it's coming to my neighborhood.
They're coming to our neighborhood, too.
Here's the inherent problem with fiber optics. It's going to be run by the same people who do cable.
I know. I mean, technically it's Google, but like it's not like it's any less evil.
Yes.
No. Well, no, actually, no. It has to be less evil. Don't you remember?
Google's
model is don't be evil. It's not be good. It's just don't be evil.
Oh.
Well, I haven't gotten my notification in the mail that Google Fiber's coming to my area, but it's supposed to. I'm worried now.
Oh, this was on
spoilers. Come on.
You got a T-shirt in the mail. Oh,
we request.
Yeah, Christina requested one. Like,
of course,
and it came. And
oh, she requested the T-shirt. I see.
What's that?
She requested the T-shirt.
Well, there was a thing. If it's coming to your neighborhood, Google will send you a T-shirt in your size when they're coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
My, county commissioners are notoriously assholes. In the county I live, I'd say it, but frankly, no one would know outside of me. So, and so they had a dispute with Google, and so literally they were coming in every surrounding area except for my home county, and then they apparently finally came to an agreement. And so I saw one of their installation trucks the other day, and I was like, "Yay!"
But
So,
ultimately, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say, so from David, you say a year after a major event is kind of your timeline, and that kind of makes sense, especially when you discuss, shows that come over from other countries. Specifically, we're discussing England.
Yeah, that is a big one. It's also kind of my rule of thumb in case I'm going to review something. And I got to admit, I'm not great at turning out reviews so quickly that this comes up that often. But if you're going to go into an in-depth analysis and really start pointing out and drive home stuff that happened, that's the kind of thing that especially then a year I think is good. But in general, I just try not to discuss details for a year in case.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this reminds me of something that we'll get to here in a second, because I know Tom pulled something, but I was just thinking it reminds me of the difference fundamentally between reviewing things and criticizing things, because when I worry about spoilers, I think of film criticism. I think of what Roger Ebert and Siskel and Roper, those Leonard Maltin used to do. Leonard Maltin does not tend to give away spoiler kind of endings, but that's not the point. He's trying to convince you whether or not to see a movie. Mm-hmm. And that's fundamentally, the characters are boring or the characters are great, the songs suck, the plot makes no sense, those kinds of things. That is film criticism. I think the problem is, now that everyone thinks they can review things, it's a matter of saying, so I watched episode S203 of blank, and it was the bestest thing ever. You're never going to expect what happens in the end of the third act. Guess what? He was dead. And you're just like, who the hell could care? But because of that kind of culture, because of the way things are, because people aren't actually trained in how to criticize, people just want to review. I mean, Dave, like you, most of my reviews are for retro movies, because the nature of my podcast is older movies. And so if I give away the ending of Die Another Day, it's 13 years old, and trust me, you shouldn't be wasting your time on it.
Exactly.
But if I'm when I used to do more criticism type things where I would go for the press release of something, I talked about whether or not it was worth seeing. And I think problematically, the line has been blurred a little bit.
Well,
I've got two things to say, Nick, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
First, my general rule with that is, of course, depending on whether or not the movie's older, as well as historical dramas. I think I'll use Argo as an example. I mean, people were trying to, be quiet about the ending as to whether or not the mission worked. It's history. You can Google it and read old news clips about how those hostages managed to get out of Iran. So I don't know how you can really spoil something when it's about actual people. That's the first thing. The second thing is, in terms of criticisms, I think Ebert would address them every once in a while, but he'd be very coy about it, and it was hilarious. He'd say stuff like, well, I'm not going to say what the spoiler was, but I will say that there's no chance that it could have worked. So it's possible to do it in a review and kind of address it and examine it, especially if that's all the movie has going for it, as to whether or not the twist works. I think he gave The Usual Suspects a lot of crap. He hated that movie, and he addressed the twist, if I recall correctly.
I tend to agree with him. But, so I have a great quote from Ebert that's kind of discussing spoilers, and it's kind of just a good jumping off point. The characters in movies do not always do what we would do. Sometimes they make choices that offend us. That is their right. It is our right to disagree with them. It is not our right, however, to destroy for others the experience of being as surprised by those choices as we were. A few years ago, I began to notice spoiler warnings on web-based movie reviews, a shorthand way of informing the reader that a key plot point was about to be revealed. Having heard from more than a few readers accusing me of telling too much to the story, I began using such warnings in my reviews.
There you go.
And so As for movies, I think, I thought the rule that I got was 2 weeks to give someone a chance to watch it. I thought that was absurd.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that is absurd. Wait until
Yeah,
I'd
I
say
think
if you can't wait until the movie's out of theaters, wait a month.
yeah, I think that's more than fair. But I would think, for the new Star Wars, which is probably going to be in theaters till at least February, probably March. Just taking a guess.
I don't think there's really a time limit necessarily. To a certain degree, I guess there is. Like, if it's opening weekend, don't go to a midnight show Thursday and then post it everywhere Fridays for something like Star Wars. But after a certain point, I don't know. I mean, if you're going to discuss the craft and if a twist is a big part of it, then that should be open for criticism without some arbitrary cutoff date, like The Usual Suspects, for example.
Well, when you said that, I immediately thought there's a scene from The Simpsons where it's one of the flashback episodes where Homer and Marge are leaving The Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
And then there's a line of people waiting to see the next showing, and he goes, "Wow, what a great movie. I can't believe Darth Vader was Luke's father the whole time." To the people in line to see the next showing.
Oh, Tom and I actually tried to do that with the Phantom Menace, and to fake people out. We walked out of the Phantom Menace and tried to loudly go by. Wait a second, but if Anakin Skywalker dies, how does he become Darth Vader?
We did do that.
That's fantastic.
I'll give a example here. I actually pulled up Ebert's review where he does address a spoiler. To the degree that you will want to see this movie, it will be because of the surprise, and so I will say no more except to say that the solution, in quotation marks, when it comes, solves little, unless there is really little to solve, which is also a possibility.
I did read your Usual Suspect reference, and he just gives away the ending effectively, and he's like, not worth seeing. Moving on.
Yeah. I think my favorite stealth spoiler, and it's not a major. Well, actually, it kind of is, but it was from the Daily Show review of of Hannibal, not review, criticism of Hannibal. And he drops the line towards the end of his criticism. And hey, for one, it proves that Ray Liotta really does have two little brain cells to rub together. And if you haven't, yes, even knowing it's Hannibal, if you haven't seen the movie, you're not gonna automatically think that's what he means. You might, but maybe not. But probably not, actually.
Well, the book had already been out, and it had the same twist, didn't it?
I never read the books, honestly.
I think the books still had the brain-eating scene.
So I guess here comes the question. You're talking to somebody else, and you're about to start talking about Game of Thrones. Isn't the first question you ask, where are you? Are you up to date? Or something to that effect. And that's fine. I mean, some people go, well, that's kind of ridiculous that you have to ask that. And I'm like, no, I think it's fair. You don't just walk up and go, I can't believe Ned Stark's dead. I mean, obviously, we know who plays him. We know he's going to die. And since that's so early in the show, I'm not giving anything away. That was season 1. Where are you? But that's why.
If you haven't seen season 1 by now, you're not ever going to watch the show.
Yeah, exactly. But for social media, which is kind of one of the big discussions, I remember when forums were a big thing. I think some of them might still be, but I haven't been on a forum in years. I have a job. I mean, no offense, I just don't have time to do both. And you would always, if you were discussing something, you put spoiler on the top of your post. You'd make it very big. You'd bold it. You just kind of put it out there. And, people will hop right on after shows come out and they'll start talking about it. And I think my favorite response is, do you have friends in California? And a lot of people will say yes. At this point, a lot of friends have spread out across the country and such as that, going, well, then you're kind of a dick because they haven't seen it yet.
AMC did that once. They posted something on their social media about, I think it was when, spoilers, Beth died. With The Walking Dead, and everyone in California, they did it right after the episode ended, and everyone in California is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
You're
But
fine.
I remember saltier language than that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I guess that's the frustrating aspect, is that it's a lack of outward thinking towards, other people's viewing experience. I mean,
We get that you're excited and all of that. We get that whatever it was, it's got you excited enough that you really want to talk about it, and that's great. It's good that you're enjoying the show that way. But if you're that excited, can you see how other people would want to be that excited?
yeah, I mean, I know that study I read, I was trying to say that, it doesn't kill your enjoyment, but, you could have just said, I can't believe that happened, and gone hashtag red wedding or something like that. Everyone would have known you were what you were talking about because they've seen it, and you would have read the book, would understand, and it's already pre-spoiled because they've read it. But anyone who hasn't seen it won't know. Like, if I hadn't seen the episode and somebody said red wedding, I'd be like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about.
I managed to avoid that spoiler, luckily. I thought it was a reference to Joffrey's wedding. It wasn't.
But I mean, it's just I guess it, and I'm not trying to be the hipster. Well, in my day, because I'm not even 30 yet. Is that I feel like when forums were the media, were your social outlet online and not social media. If you were the person that spoiled something without putting a spoiler warning, you were sent to Coventry. You were ostracized for it. It was not looked upon well. And now it's kind of like, well, you didn't watch it when it first came on. Well, sucks to be you. And it's...
Well, what I think what it basically comes down to is forums have to regulate behavior. I know you, Tom, have seen what happens to a forum where there are no restrictions on people, and how that can spiral down the drain and make it like a very unfriendly, unfun place to be. And forums have died that way. So that kind of social ostracism, and which I might add, wasn't just social ostracism; it was backed by the mods. Was necessary to keep forums reasonable, fun places to be. Social media doesn't have that because, there's not a regulator on it. Twitter doesn't divide itself up that way. People select or whatever. And so there's no one to, like, if on Twitter you can get away with saying, well, sucks to be you if you don't like what I just did, and on forums you could get banned. And so all of the old practices, it's like, well, there are no repercussions, so people have gotten used to them not having any weight.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a joke when Straczynski was still in charge of Spider-Man, and it was along the lines of, they said, anonymity's great. Lets you say whatever the heck you want. I should create a place where people could just go and not have to share their names or faces and just say whatever the hell they want. That's the internet in a nutshell. I think what would be interesting from our perspective is not that anybody will give a rat's ass. If we were to try and set what we would think would be agreeable rules on a spoiler, whether or not it be length of time, David, you said a year, or whether or not just be really big friggin' bold letters that say spoiler and then give a little bit of space to let you go, oh, if I want to keep reading, I'm aware of what's coming. If I don't, I can scroll faster.
Well, I'll tell you what, frankly, it seems like at this point so much social media domination is there. I almost wish that we could tag stuff. It seems like it would be easy. I just frankly always tag spoilers if there are spoilers. And frankly, I don't usually put spoilers in Facebook posts, but that's because I'm a decent human being. Also, I see things like 9 years late. So no one would give a shit if I'm like, Jesus, did you know that... I was going to say that Bruce Willis's career died. But my point ultimately is, like, it would be frankly brilliant if Facebook almost... and especially if they want to be the ones who become the only social network, which effectively they are. The ones that are contrary are almost niche, but where you could almost tag something, or in Reddit add flair to make it so that it's a spoiler, where it literally just says spoiler, and you select Game of Thrones, or let's say, and if you want to see what the person said, you can click on it. But otherwise, it's just a big spoiler warning.
I mean, there already exists an app, or there used to, I don't know if it still works because Facebook doesn't seem to like these things, where you could take all of the pictures of your friends' babies and have them replaced with pictures of puppies so that you'd stopped having to see them on your news feed. If that is possible, I should think that a spoiler warning system should be possible as well.
But I mean, like, fundamentally, then the question is, if there's a length of time. I mean, yes and no. If you're trying to get a review out, you either have to be in the first week as a blogger, otherwise no one's going to give a shit anyway.
Okay, but then here's the thing. All right, you're a blogger, you're a reviewer. Just let's stick with blog or vlogger or something like that. You put out vlogger sounds
Something
like
that ends with og.
Yeah, and you decide to put up your review. I mean, obviously, if you go to something like that, you're probably going to expect to see spoilers, but it doesn't hurt to go just a quick. It can be a sub little tag underneath your headline going spoilers to follow.
I've seen a number of places that a number of things like this that they say, all right, well, we're going to get into, especially for the YouTube ones, we're going to get into spoilers at this point. So if you don't want to hear them, click the button below and it'll skip forward to the section where we're done talking about them.
I mean, Bum Reviews does it. It's like, warning, spoilers! It's like, I mean,
when we were reviewing movies, we would do the same thing. The few times we even needed to get into spoilers.
Well, and it's the same way that places like Letterboxd do it, or even most podcasts that they'll say at the top, we're going to talk about spoilers. But if you're listening to this, we're going to talk about spoilers. It's it's on one hand common courtesy, so already the internet's out. I'm on a movie forum that's excellent called Letterboxd, and Letterboxd does a really good job of regulating this stuff because you can see the idea. Like, it's this kind of code of conduct among niche people. I think fundamentally part of the problem is, again, that difference between criticism and review, and we just have so many people who want to be like critics, but actually are actually reviewers, and they don't have that kind of decency. Like, even things like video game reviews. Part of that is talking about the first hour of a 10-hour game. Because if you can't get into it in the first hour, well, I mean, it's what Yahtzee does every week on Zero Punctuation.
exactly.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you have to have something more than just summarizing a plot. We don't train a lot of journalists or a lot of reviewers anymore. Film studies becomes like this novelty. It's not really a class people take to learn. It's something people do to fill time and watch movies. You don't.
Well, to a certain degree, that's part of. Sorry.
No, please. I mean, ultimately, my point is, people are posting stuff because, wow, did you know? Like, who would have guessed Darth Vader was Luke's father? It's you're confusing joy and like surprise and wanting a unique experience where everyone simultaneously has that. That's what the internet promises us. But, you go to see a comedy to hear people laugh. You go online to get likes. The thing is, though, cultural connotations mean a lot. And if you're giving up those secrets, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem with that, though, like you said, Nick, there's no real training anymore. So everybody's failing, but they have to fail publicly in order to really learn. So does that mean that they should just get slammed down, or should they actually take the time? It's like, wow, I screwed this up badly, and or maybe the solution is what we were talking about, and setting some sort of ground rules.
Well, I mean, what is it? I think one of the ones I've heard, if you're trying to, and this is one of the few that I read from that article that I actually really agreed with. The 24 hours is kind of debatable, but for a movie, if it's still in theaters, if someone hasn't seen it and you just want to tell them about it, you may tell them about the first half hour, because nothing generally earth-shattering happens in the first half hour.
Well, Psycho that
Well, yeah,
your main
but I mean,
character
generally
gets killed.
you have enough to describe them a hook to get them to go,
Yeah.
and you can avoid anything plot-shattering.
Yeah, the exceptions to that half-hour rule are going to be abundantly clear when
Well,
they
yeah.
happen. It's going to be
Well-
like, oh crap, that's like a huge deal.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you said, Psycho, that's a prime example. Um, if anybody gave a damn, the second G.I. Joe movie.
I was,
Oh,
I was gonna say Home Alone.
What-
You never
Look,
guess their
oh.
kid. They're gonna leave him home
No!
alone.
I think.
What
that if
about
the standards, though-
situations?
Situation comedy.
What about situations where the spoiler's so obvious that anybody who's got two functioning brain cells can guess what's happening? Like in Spectre, everybody knew who Christoph Waltz's character really was going to be, and in the second Star Trek movie, everybody knew who Benedict Cumberbatch was going to be before.
Okay, well,
really
let's.
seen
Okay,
it.
so let me. I'll tackle this one real quick for at least the Spectre side. I honestly didn't think about it, about actors and all that, until we got to the meeting room, and then the guy in the shadow, I knew abundantly clear who he was as soon as that happened. But I didn't think about it I didn't know who was in it. I didn't look at the actors. It wasn't an aspect I really thought about until I sat down for the movie.
I mean, I think that one of the things is just because some people can see from the trailers or the first 15 minutes of what's coming up doesn't mean everyone can. I mean, I'm guessing that most of you saw some of the major plot twists of Oblivion coming from the trailers, but you might not have. I mean, I predicted like 3/4 of that movie just from the trailer. But I had people, I know people who were like, no, that's just completely out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, okay, well, bow to your wisdom.
Well, I'm going to give an example which is more prescient for us than the listeners, and I think it'll tell you what I'm thinking. I think part of the thing, too, is that studios have a mixed problem. First of all, spoilers make people think that they want to see it to see whether or not they're right. And I think the examples you gave of Benedict Cumberbatch being Khan is a good one. But I'm thinking right now about the new Star Wars. I have no idea what's going on. Again, I haven't followed anything. And when I'm saying this, it's still a week before Star Wars comes out, which I know will automatically make Tom look like a bad producer, but that's not my point right now. It will be later, but not right now. So we know that there's a bad guy who looks like he is he's a member of KISS with the tiger makeup on, but he's actually a Sith warrior named Kylo Ren. And for some reason, Mark Hamill doesn't appear in the trailers. And it became so obvious that the trailer, and then therefore the studio was trying to say, maybe it's Luke Skywalker, that there's actually a picture of Mark Hamill holding up a whiteboard saying, I'm not Kylo Ren, stop bothering me.
You're the next person to say that, I will force choke. Like,
Yeah, and so you wonder too if other people didn't read that San Diego State study that Tom read, where he was, the head of the studio or the executive producer who wasn't J.J. Abrams wasn't like, if we slip in some stuff that's fake, people are more likely to see it because they'll think it's a spoiler when it's not. I think we're so, again, it's stupid. It's freaking Star Wars. If all we saw was black, like a black poster with, the gold letters of, Star Wars, people would see it. So why are they doing this? I don't know.
I mean, if you look at the teaser trailer for, I think it's Star Wars Rogue. It's basically it's supposed to take place like either pre-original trilogy or during original trilogy. It's gonna have Vader in it. These are things that we all know. But if you watch the trailer, it is literally like looking at a forest as you face up towards the sky, and above it, you start going to the sky, you see the Death Star. That is the opening. That is your teaser trailer. There is nothing else. Then it says Star Wars Rogue. Done. People cheered for 5 minutes straight at Comic-Con when this happened, and I'm like, but nothing happened.
Oh, the first I think it was Plinkin who pointed out that the first Force Awakens trailer didn't even show space. It didn't even show the stars anywhere. It was all terrestrial or in ships. I'm not even sure it was in ships. I think it was all terrestrial.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a difficult thing to tie down. You know how you. I mean, you can kind of go. There should be rules of thumb that run through your brain. Oh, gee, maybe this person hasn't seen this yet, and I shouldn't tell them that Glenn is dead. You know, obviously, by the time this comes out, or even now,
Well,
you
I love
know,
how we've spent so much time, so very, very much time talking about rules of the watcher and how when they should spoil stuff. When the thing that got you started was the media doing it. We've talked a little bit about the media doing it, but mostly we've been like putting down rules on. You'd think the media would be the one that we need to say, "Hey, guys."
Well, and I mean, like, the other side to this, too, is there's also, I know, God, it sounds like I'm talking theory, the difference between old and new media, right? The problem is, in the 90s, the next day, on Monday, at school, I could talk about the new X-Files, because it was really hard to get reruns in, like, 1996, right?
Yeah.
You knew they were going to come out during the winter when they were off, or during the summer when they were off. But that's why everyone tuned in to the last episode of Seinfeld. That's why everyone tuned into X-Files.
It's why these days you could never get the MASH New York sewer effect.
Right. That's exactly
yes,
what it is.
exactly.
And that's why, Tom's example of, I don't know when I can even talk to people about Daredevil on Netflix. Right? It's because they dump it all at once. And hopefully my buddies who watch it with me, we've created such an online niche culture that theoretically I can just go to the, Daredevil forum on Reddit and talk about it there, because people will have watched it in 24 hours. And even if I'm 6 months late to the party, as Mark Maron is frequently says on his podcast, I could interview someone 6 months after they're important, but damn it, there's no more late to the party. He'll also line that up with about 10 minutes of profanity and, angst about someone from the 80s. But that's the point. Like, on one hand, the people who care too much are going to feel like they're late to the party immediately, right? Meanwhile, shows like Firefly, I'm not embarrassed to say this, I didn't want to watch it. My friends in high school were such assholes about watching it and how I should. I was like, fuck you, I'm not going to spend my time watching it.
That's how I feel about The Wire to this day.
And so ultimately, will I probably watch it? Sure, why not? There's down times I'm almost caught up with all my shows and they're about to go on like a month-long sabbatical for the Christmas season. Fine. That's when I'll crack back out like the rest of Sopranos and The Wire, because I know I'll enjoy them. But I don't need to be like told constantly, yo bro, have you watched it? No.
Yeah, I have to admit, and I know this sounds really hipster, but the more people push me that I have to watch something, the less I want to, because it stops being about whether I'm going to enjoy it and starts being about the obligation so that they can speak to me about it. And I know I'm going to enjoy it. This is not like if I can't like it before it's cool, then it doesn't count. No, I know they're right and I'll enjoy it. I just don't want to.
Yeah, I missed Firefly entirely. I'd never even heard of it. I even missed Serenity. I don't even remember when that movie came out, and I heard it came out my sophomore year of college. I have no idea how I missed that boat, but I caught it now. I enjoy it now.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. Though on that comment, your past comment, David, I am just thanking God Breaking Bad is done and over, because I'm just happy no one goes, have you watched it yet? Have you watched it yet? Have you watched it yet? No.
I tried. I'm not the target audience. No
Watch
worries.
the season.
Well,
That's where I am.
I mean, I'm just going to throw this out there. One of the world's major religions was founded on a spoiler. I mean, every time anybody talks to you about Christianity, it's going to be about how Christ died for your sins. I mean, isn't that a spoiler right there?
But at
And they call it
2,000
the
years,
good
you kinda
news.
have to-
Sorry, not sorry.
But so, I mean, if we want to discuss media, we have a few minutes to do that in, but we are coming down.
Well, the biggest problem is how would you get the media aside from getting everyone to just turn their backs on the people who do it, and sorry, they're not going to turn their backs on the Nerdist right now. You're not going to make much. You're not going to be that big.
Are you kidding? Their entire comment section for that article was sorry, not sorry. Like, or no, not even not. It was just not sorry. No sorry to begin with. Just like, well, everyone else is covering it, so we have to cover it too. I'm like, wow. I'm going to sound like my parents, but, jumping off a bridge doesn't have its.
Well, no, you don't need to sound like your parents on that one. The issue isn't that you covered it. The issue is that you headlined it the way you did. Come on, stop trying to straw man here.
Yeah, no, and the problem is it's not even clickbait at that point. It's we're gonna be a dick.
Yeah.
Because, clickbait would be, we've got new facts about the Star Wars movie, come inside, and it's like, hey, we just found out this actor's in it. And you're like, that sucks. That was, why did I come here?
You may have a point there. It might be precisely precisely that it would look like clickbait if they did anything else. That is the reason that they did it this way. Because anything else would be, we have new shit. Well, everybody's got that. And most of the time it's not. So why do we trust you this time? But here, we've told you what we've got. Well, you didn't actually have anything more, probably, but...
Have you noticed the trend against clickbait that's actually encouraging spoilers? I mean, you'll see a headline that's, "You won't believe the big twist at the end of Star Wars," is the headline, and then somebody in the comment section will be like, "Meh, Luke dies, I saved you a click," and they feel all proud of themselves for fighting against the power or whatever, not realizing they're contributing to the problem.
It's like, it's like a kid spoiling a gift before his friend gets to open it. It's like, do you feel really that good? Like, is what you did really that, take that much effort that you're proud of it? I mean, at this point, I just feel like I'm sounding nitpicky, not nitpicky, but just kind of like, very old and shrew.
No, it basically comes down to a level of
decorum.
Honestly, no, it's basically the evolution of the first phenomenon. Everybody wants their brief moments of notoriety. However, I think we should at least take some small bit of comfort that it is an evolution of it. Meaning someday, maybe, in the far future, when seven or eight utopias have come and gone, it will finally evolve to something that might, in a bad light, look like common human decency. But probably not.
We've been waiting for millennia for common human decency to appear. I think we're going to be keeping wait.
I know. Common human decency isn't so common.
Guess we'll just have to wait for the Messiah somewhere else.
Spoilers, he's gonna die. I think that's as good a place to end this.
I think it's perfect, actually. And on that glorious note, this has been another episode of the Geekly Oddcast. Once again, tonight on panel we had...
Hi, I'm Nick. You keep listening to me talk as much as possible. At this time, when it comes out, I'll also probably be hosting the Georgia Association of Historians Conference podcast, so look for that as well.
And also...
Hi, this is Daniel. Besides myopia, you can also check out my blog, The Corner Critic. And David, I got some bad news for you in terms of spoilers. Prince Adam and He-Man were the same person.
No! Oh man, that was on my review list.
But damn it, who was El Kabong?
Oh. Jay
You
Sherman's
can't remember
dad?
the character's name! Ha!
Oh man. So yeah, I am Ramnessus of the Brothers Herman, aka David of the Brothers Herman. I got that in reverse. I review cartoons online, and yeah, I got nothing pithy to say this time.
That'll do it. Thank you for joining us on the Geekly Oddcast. Please join us in 2 weeks when we discuss cartoon reboots. Thank you. Good night.